Pete and Krista from Cheap Homesteading, and we're just here ending beans. We got about 3/4 of a bushel, and well, it was a great crop, and we're just going to end them and blanch them and get them in the freezer for this winter.
It's date night here.
This is exciting. Okay, the first thing you have to do is fill up the pot. My pot's too big for the sink, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but I'll fill it up as far as I can, and then I'll get another pot and fill it till it's about half full. Because when you dump your beans in, it's going to take up the rest of the volume, so it's going to be about that high, which will be plenty enough to pick up for sure. There you go. So we're going to wash the beans now. So I fill the pot about halfway with cold water. We dump it in, rinse it around, dump it, rinse it a few times so we know they're clean. Okay, so you wash them one more time for good measure, and then we're going to blanch them. Fill it up again to wash these. Throw the bean. It's just starting to boil. I'm going to throw the beans in. I'm immediately going to fill this with cold water. We're going to set the alarm for 3 minutes. Blanching is basically just cooking the outside of the bean, just the skin area, without actually cooking the whole bean. The reason you do that is because if you just cut it up and put it in the freezer, it doesn't freeze as well. It doesn't last as long, because even in cold temperatures, the enzymes and everything that are in the skin continue to break it down. So that this kind of stops it. So when you do put it in the freezer, they freeze and store very well. So that's why you do it. I have some cold water all ready to go. Basically what I'm going to do is dump the beans in the sink. When the hot water drains away, I'm going to throw the cold water on top of it to stop the cooking process. Even though you take it off the burner, it's still going to cook. This is a little bit of an unorthodox style, but it is effective. So now, you cool down the beans. Almost got them cool. You got to keep moving it around till you get the beans all cooled down. So now you lay them out on a towel to let them dry a bit. Okay, so now you gotta try to dry the beans off because if you don't dry them off enough, they will just crystallize and freezer burn a lot easier in the package than if they're drier. So you just keep drying them the best you can. Get another few towels if you have to. For my non-Canadian friends, I use milk bags to store my beans. Milk bags are bags they fill milk up in, and they put them in a pitcher, and you clip the edge off, and then you pour the milk out. I think it's the only place in the world that sells their milk in bags. But these bags are like a little bit thicker. They store very well in the freezer. I had some that were in those store-bought thinner bags, and they didn't last half as long as the ones that were in these. I don't know what it is, if they're just don't seal as good. Like these are thick, so they probably seal quite well. Okay, so we had beans that were almost 2 years old. You know, get down the bottom of the freezer, you don't notice, you know, and they were still good. But the beans that we put in those store-bought bags, they didn't even last a year. So these are by far, they're cheap because they're free for us, and they store so well. So that's what I use. If you don't have milk bags, you really should use pretty thick bags to use for sealing your beans. It just seems to work better. So anyway, so I'm reusing these. I have a Midwest sealer. It's more for sealing parts bags and stuff, but it is absolutely awesome. And I'm just using the vacuum. You want to put enough for a meal. So there you go. I've got one bag of vacuum sealed beans. Just a few more to go. So this vacuum sealer, when I got it at a garage sale, and it's brand new. The guy didn't use it. It's for sealing bags, not so much for food specifically, and it wasn't a vacuum sealer. So I was a little bit worried about it, but when I used my vacuum, this thing is awesome. When I use those little vacuum sealers, it takes forever for them to work and they don't suck out all the air. When you use the vacuum, those things evacuate every bit of air out of that bag. It does a far superior job than those little tiny vacuum sealers for sure. Another one. So there you go, it's all vacuum sealed, and I found it worked best on the number 5 setting, but it actually did an absolutely great job using the vacuum cleaner and the sealer. I'm going to throw it in the freezer. You guys have a good one.